What's cracking, guys? Omar Yusuf here, back with another video. This is the video, the strength roundtable. We got Alan Thrall, we got Bruce Crawfish, aka Bryce Krawcheck, Jonnie Candito the Burrito, Silencio Mikel, and yours truly talking about strength for 2 hours. If this was a year ago, before the pandemic, everyone would be blowing their minds. But I thought it'd be cool to get some of the best YouTube strength content creators together to talk about what everyone cares about, lifting some heavy ass shit. So, if you enjoy this long, very enjoyable, I should say, interview, or let's say roundtable, make sure to like the damn video, follow every single person's channel, link to that is in the description. And if you want to see another one, make sure to leave a comment below. We're thinking about things, okay? We're thinking about things, so just let us know. Timestamps in the description. Let's get started with this video. You wanted the best? Well, they didn't fucking make it. So here's what you get. On the YouTube right now, we figured, nobody cares about strength anymore. I mean, strength was already trending down for a long period of time. But why not get 4 of the prominent strength-powerlifting channels together to talk about something no one can currently do, and that is lift some weights. I won't do a lengthy introduction because if you don't know, shame on you. And introductions in general on podcasts or episodes, they take 20 minutes. But we have Bryce Krawcheck in the house, we have Silencio Mikel, we have Alan Thrall, aka Adam Paul, and we have Jonnie Candito, the Burrito, in the house. It's a round table. We're going to talk about strength, but we need to address the elephant in the room right now. And I'm going to open up the floor to everyone right now. This coronavirus, never knew a beer could be so dangerous, basically is going to sit everyone out from training for at least a few months, no matter what. Unless you have that home gym elite setup, you're not going to be lifting for a while. And many people that follow your channels care about strength. They want to get stronger. They want to finally bench press 135 pounds. In real practical terms, if we could just give a rough approximation to say people won't have access maybe to 3 months worth of equipment, what's going to happen to people and their strength gains? Because I know a lot of people, they see, the push-up workouts. Maybe they saw Johnny's monolift or Alan's at-home workouts. They're like, but I squat 4 plates. Like, how's this going to preserve my strength? I want some reassurance is what I'm looking for, gents. And I'm going to start probably clockwise down. Let's start with Bryce. People aren't going to be training 3 months at the gym. Are their gains gone forever? Is it all hopeless? Should we give up?
I think honestly, like some people are overly hopeful and some people are overreacting.
Yeah.
I think it's not going to be as bad as a lot of people think. If you've been training for 10 years and you take 3 months off, like you're not starting at ground zero again. But I mean, in the meantime, you're not going to be able to push your E1RM or your 1RM squat, bench, and deadlift up if you don't have access to a barbell and a sufficient amount of weight. It's just not going to happen. Like, it doesn't matter how many pistol squats you do. It's not going to happen. But what you can do is leave yourself as best prepared as possible to re-enter the gym, keep your conditioning high, keep your work capacity high, keep yourself in some semblance of shape so you don't die the first time you step foot in a gym again, and just prepare yourself for making that transition back into things. I think people probably be pleasantly surprised by how little they lose, but you're not going to maintain everything unless you have access to sufficient equipment.
Bryce, thank you so much. I knew there was a reason why you're Pizza Hut's greatest employee. Mike, your insights?
I kind of just went through this really myself, and so my stress is real low. I took a long time. I probably took 9 months off bench press. I was doing some weightlifting with my boy Alan, and shout out to Ben Claridad. So I just stopped benching because my overhead position was so crap. I didn't want to even make it even worse. I was squatting pretty good. But I wasn't really deadlifting per se. I was doing some clean pulls, but that's like 400 pounds or 200 kilos. So, for my deadlift training, it wasn't quite the same. And then I ended up going through some personal stuff and took almost exactly 3 to 4 months off deadlifts and squats totally. I literally, let's not get sad here. Sad times are sad, but I was literally just on my couch. I was just literally on my couch for like 3 months. And I just started coming back, seeing Alan's beautiful beard every day. I was up and untamed, and it sucked. It really did suck. It didn't feel good. It wasn't fun. A 315 squat felt like 1,000 pounds on my back. But in like 6 to 8 weeks, I was back in pretty decent strength shape. I wasn't hitting all-time maxes, but I was back in in the range where I could follow like an old program or hit similar RPEs or something of an old time. You know, I hit like a 605 deadlift for some easy doubles, a 350 bench, and like a 535 squat, which again aren't crazy numbers or anything, but they're in my kind of 85-90% range. So I think I agree. Obviously, the skill of powerlifting or even strength sports in general, you're going to need your tools. But this is a great time to kind of maintain as much muscle as you can, whether that's with body weight stuff or a little GPP for your bush. And that's like Alan's sandbag stuff, Jonnie's, plate monolift push-ups. You just get some general strength training, some kind of stimulus in. If you can keep your muscle, then yeah, man, there's no reason to stress. Stressing about it is just, I think, almost a disfavor to our world right now. Not to get too philosophical, but like, bro, no one cares about your bicep. No one really cares about your squat. There's a bigger picture here. Yeah. I know you do, but it will be there. The barbell will be there. The gym will be there. Don't stress it. Don't stress it.
Love it. Alan, my rugged individual who I know always makes do, and you have a positive attitude. What are your insights to those languishing right now thinking 3 months, no barbell? What is life?
Yeah, I think that Bryce said it well. If you've been training for 10 years and you take 3 months off, not a huge deal. And I think that anything you lose, you can gain just as quickly. Or gain back just as quickly. And I think that you kind of have to define strength. Sure, your powerlifting total will drop if you're not training with a barbell, but you could improve your relative strength, body weight strength, work capacity, conditioning, just get better at something else. So that's my input.
Love it. And finally, Jonnie Candito. 3 months away from the barbell, bro. What's going to happen?
Well, the way I view it is it's first of all, it's in relation to training frequency. So one situation with myself, for example, is that I bench 5 days a week. So I actually just got a bench in today as far as the bench itself. I didn't actually train on it yet. But you have to look at it in a situation like that. I've missed basically 20 workouts. So for someone like myself, that's going to come at a significant cost. And I think it is important to say, I probably won't bench a PR for 6 months, just being realistic. Whereas when it comes to someone who squats and deadlifts, let's say 1 to 2 times a week, then it's far more manageable. And the other point that I would make, and this is something that kind of similar to Mike, I have personal experience with coming back with dramatic changes in strength, is the biggest mistake I made. And remember, I don't know if you guys know this, but I literally deadlifted 565 with a deadlift bar, missing weight, and a deadlift only meet. So I deadlifted basically 135 pounds under what I do now. I was literally 200-pound weight class technically because I weighed like 182. So it was probably the most depressing lifting experience I've had in my life, being realistic. And one of the problems is that I was so stuck in my training framework that when I came back, the first thing I wanted to do was snatch grip deadlifts, going into deficit deadlifts, I had the order basically just delayed. So my piece of advice would be the accessory work's not going to transfer in the same way. Yeah. So the ratios itself might change, not just the strength. So I'd say when you come back, just face the music. Hit a single at RPE7. It's going to suck. It's going to be a little bit sad. But doing something like that is far wiser than kind of just putting that off and just doing 3x10 with stiff leg deadlifts, hoping that's going to convert over the same way. Because it'll be totally different.
Jonnie, I am glad to have
everyone.
Yeah. I'm glad to have everyone in on this conversation. I think that's a perfect jumping off point. I would say probably besides myself, you're the channel probably that's been around the longest. You've seen it all, man. I remember in 2011, 2012, before, the IPF took over, you basically put the USAPL on the map. Let's just state facts right now. And I've seen True. I'm just saying, man, you are single-handedly responsible for a large amount of people, which we had a private conversation about that, how it's funny now in 2020. People don't even know, like, their favorite lifters, they're your biggest fan. Like, they got into lifting because of you. So it can't be understated your importance. But I do want to circle back to that, and I'll go around the entire group. You did have a comeback, man, and I want to say huge congratulations. The 700-pound deadlift, 600-pound squat. I could only imagine achieving, and that's why it is totally different, right? If you squat 315 right now, and you've been training 2 years, it's going to be a lot easier for you to come back. You were at the tippity top. You went to IPF Worlds. You competed there as a junior. You placed third. You had that injury. Then you had some back aggravations. I've seen it all, man. And so it's been tremendous to see you come back, and you have real world experience essentially dealing with what a lot of people will be facing 3 months down the line. Let's talk about the comeback right now. So can you just break down a little bit? So now we're 3 months. Boys, the apocalypse is over. We could get back into the gym. And let's assume right now, we'll get back to different classifications because context is important. But let's talk to the, powerlifting boys. Those that probably have a plus 300 Wilks. I know that's not a crazy number, but those have a few years of lifting under their belt, and now they're back in the gym. Jonnie, how do we approach that? And then we'll go around the circle once again. So kick it off for us.
Well, if you have a 300 Wilks, let's say, how many years of experience are we talking?
Let's say at least 2. So let's say 2 to 4.
Yeah, I'd say 2 to 4 years. As long as everything's moderate, then I think the picture is very optimistic.
Okay.
Because at that point, the best way to think about it is the amount of work that you have ahead of you is just drastically more than the amount of work that you have behind you. It's not like you're maintaining at 300 Wilks. You probably could add 150 Wilks. I'd say that's a relatively conservative, good goal for a lot of people. And at that point, then the picture totally shifts.
Yeah.
So I definitely acknowledge that. Like, you don't have to worry about. I actually saw a comment. This is actually a funny thing. I saw a comment on Sean Noriega, and it was a guy saying that he's stuck with an Olympic barbell. So should he just switch to high bar and just not even low bar squat? And then Sean said to use an A7 shirt, and then he said he doesn't want to become dependent on the A7 shirt. So it's like a good example of just stop thinking about that. Just put it on, low bar squat, you'll be fine. Like, make as minimal changes as possible. And, like we were saying earlier, if you can't do it, I would say the lower body is going to be the most hit because realistically, it's hard to get significant activation. It's hard to reach that RP 7-6 threshold on air squats, just being realistic. But everything else, you upper body wise, you can probably maintain. And if you're a weaker lifter, what's the biggest issue? It's typically long-term upper body development. Usually you have a ton of room in terms of squat and deadlift technique anyways.
Love it.
So yeah, that's what I'd say overall.
Yeah, love it, man. Bryce?
Yeah, I think I'd echo a lot of what Jonnie said. And I think the comment about the A7 shirt and not wanting to become dependent on that is just so, I don't even know what it is to define it, but I think we need to basically do whatever we have to try to lift right now. We got people on Instagram making standing racks out of 2x4s and blocks of cement, and people using bars with no center knurling. And I only have 350 pounds, and I got a guy who's a very good lifter. He's got 350 pounds. He's a 600-pound squatter, and he's doing Steinborn squats. So he'll stand the bar up, lean into it, get all crunched up, and get it on his back and pop it up, and then hit that for sets of 10. And, people I got a German client who can't do real deadlifts. So all right, tempo RDLs for sets of 10. It's whatever you have to do for now, do. And then coming back, just get back into more optimal training. And I think things will logically follow. Another big mistake I think a lot of people are probably going to make is coming back in too hot. Expecting their work capacity to have remained the same and that they need, 5 days of bench still. It's man, you could probably bench 3 days a week for 6 weeks before you ramp back up into that frequency and do yourself a lot of favors in terms of getting used to that amount of work and stress over again. So I think my big thing would be basically just treat it as a long absence and understand and I guess recognize and respect the fact that you may have taken a step back with the amount of stress that's required for you to sort of reapproach that level.
Love it. Silencio Mikel, you're all good, never better. What's up?
The question is the comeback, yeah? What's that actually look like?
The apocalypse is lifted, my friend. We're now finally able to train 3 years down the line.
I can see clearly now. I think a combination of both. I guess more into the X and O's. So some things that I did is like Bryce just said is I try to find like what your personal like moderate frequency would be, right? Like Jonnie's normal frequency is 5 times bench in a week right now. Mine's like 3 to 4 would be my highest frequency. So I'd find that moderate as I started to get back. And then you got to take in the mental aspect. So I'm probably not hitting a bunch of singles because I don't want to go home and cry when I bench 185. I just get a little bit of my work capacity back for 2 to maybe 6 weeks, see how that feels, whether that's 3s, 5s, who gives a shit? Like, it really doesn't matter. Just getting general work done. And then from there, the next little block or whatever you want to call it, cycle, if you will, I'll maybe just hop into, then I'm starting to handle some heavier weights. So whether that be, some kind of single to start the workout, getting back to my regular frequency, hitting some RPEs, 8 and 9 a couple times a week, handling some loads, checking the ego. And then probably after that, honestly, was right where I was when this kind of shut her down. I was doing some moderate testing to kind of feel out where my strength was, how much oomph I had, and then I was going to hop back into kind of regular programming. So again, kind of like a 2-block cycle, and at least you're back in the conversation. You're not going to be depending on the individual. Again, I've trained forever, not optimally, not strong, but I have been in the gym and an athlete for a very long freaking time. So I do have kind of a maturity that some people don't have. So it does depend. Again, if we're going to the example of 2 to 4 years, it might be a little bit different. But you're back in the conversation. And I think actually, if the example of the guy who's trained for 2 years, shit, man, you might hit some PRs 3 to 6 months down, because you can kind of take this time to kind of reevaluate what's working, what's not. Like Jonnie said, like he didn't want to just hop right back into deficit deads. It wasn't working, or whatever the example was. You can kind of reassess and find a new plan of attack. Or hire a new coach. We got 3 handsome coaches here. A guy with a beard, the thickest in the north, and Mr. Candito. So, shit, man, we got to spark up this economy, hire my boys.
I'm just looking for handouts right now. Actually, what you guys don't know is before this podcast began, I was just outside asking. I'm like, hey, man, I used to be on YouTube. Can I get like 25 cents? It's rough out there.
Where's the YouTube stimulus package?
It's called OnlyFans.
I need more views.
Mike, it's called
I need more robot views.
OnlyFans or many fans. It's our stimulus and our way out of here. Dubai's going to be our biggest cash flow. Alan?
Yeah, as far as a comeback, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how to do it. I would actually treat it almost like I would treat someone who was post-meet or after a peak, which sounds kind of odd because we've had a period of doing nothing. But I would move more into what I would call like a developmental block, or maybe a pivot block, and do some higher repetition, high variety, and exercise selection, because you don't really have as much of a connection to the numbers with that. So if I got right back 3 months after not lifting and I said, I'm going to go pull a heavy deadlift, and I would be bummed out because it would probably not be great compared to what I've done in the past. But if Jonnie was like, hey, I'm going to have you work up to a top set of 10, snatch grip, wide stance, deadlifts, I'd be like, dude, I have no idea like what that number should be. So sounds good. I'll do that. But I think most importantly, just getting the routine back, I think would be most important, to where if you have some sort of pivot block and you go to the gym 3 or 4 days a week, just get back into that, which might be tough for some people. But anyways, yeah, I would say higher variety and exercise selection, probably a little bit higher reps, even like odd numbers. Like everyone knows 6s, 8s, 10s, 12s. Sometimes I'll have clients like, hey, work up to sets of 7 at RP 9, sets of 9 at RP 9, 13. You're like, I have no idea what that's supposed to be. So sounds good. So you really don't have that numerical connection kind of weighing on you all the time.
Love it.
But no 5s? I didn't hear a 5 in there.
Everyone knows their 5 rep max.
Okay.
Everybody does their 5.
I got to give a shout out to Jonnie, who was the first person that staked in a video where he just cited his opinion. Where this is what I want to talk about right now, and we'll start once again around the table. How strength has changed, or strength training, I should say, has changed over the last decade. And we could start first powerlifting focus, and then we can have a meta conversation on, general strength, if it's a thing, and how we define that. But we're talking now, Jonnie, you've been it's at least a decade, your content, we're talking 2011, I think you started, or 2010?
Well, I think 2011 was when I first did a powerlifting meet, so probably around there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was when I was both long jumping as a D3 college and doing Raw Nationals. I got like second out of 3 in my like T2 division.
Hey,
so those were the days.
Strong second. I just want to say, actually, I was a huge fan. Go on, Alan.
Was that around the time you filmed your how to squat video shirtless in a park?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Classic.
I think I was 19.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I was 19 at the time.
I'm actually a huge fan, and that's one of the conversations we'll talk about, because we're speaking, you and myself, about specificity of lifting and how like your physique from like 2012, 2013, being an athlete, running around, doing a little bit of bodybuilding with your father, where it's like, man, this is a great physique right here. And then it's like, let's get really specific now with the bench, squat, and deadlift and how that changes. But I want to talk about the evolution, or maybe some could say regression, that has occurred over the last 10 years. Jonnie, I want to ask you, you've seen it all. You've seen people rise and fall. You've seen, for instance, the IPF actually become a thing. You're a living embodiment of their moral values. How would you say strength training for the average coach or lifter, how has that changed over the last decade? Where, let's say, a decade ago we had like RUM was a thing, untested powerlifting was, maybe, you could correct me if I'm wrong, as popular as the IPF, or at least in the public consciousness. You know what I mean? Like, we could see Dan Green lifting, and their thought patterns would greatly influence someone. Westside, I see Mike wearing the shirt. This isn't a knock, but they had a greater sway over the average person. It's like, oh, you want to get into powerlifting? You got to do this stuff. Like, I remember back when I joined Fortis Fitness in 2012, it would be, we're like, Sean, he's like a West Side guy because he's like, in his 50s. It's when he got into lifting. How has powerlifting changed and powerlifting coaching? Like, what are some of the biggest evolutions, let's say, over the last decade?
Okay. Let me see. I'll give you a specific example. And I do want to shout him out also because he actually won the Arnold that I competed in. So I competed at the Arnold, and you have to think about it psychologically from my perspective. The best total going in is 1655 of all of us that seeded, or 1658 actually. I total 1675, and I get beat by 70 pounds. So that's how quickly things are improving. And I was talking with, his name's Delaney Wallace, the guy who won, and he totaled around 1740. So he put 90 pounds on his total, basically, he competed at nationals. So he put 90 pounds in about 3 months. Now, obviously, there are other variables, all of that. But he's being coached by Joey Flex, who I actually think
Never heard of him.
Yeah, I give him, honestly, a ton of credit. And it's almost to the point where I think sometimes people assume, like, there's just some, like, business relationship or something. But he's one of those few people that actually changed my actions in a very real way. And he's the reason why I do singles year round now. And I think his overall approach is definitely, it's more seeking results in the medium term over and over and over again. And if something good isn't happening, you ask yourself, why haven't you made progress in 6 months? There's a time, Omar, you especially know this, is around 4 years ago, I remember there was a time where if you made progress as a natural, that was somewhat surprising. And that expectation is demolished. I mean, I actually will give you a specific thing. I remember when Brett Contreras wrote an article saying Lane Norton is one of the few who continues to progress. Now people look at Lane and they're like, come on, like they're testing him and he's doing well. But it shows that, that does push guys like myself too, where you're expected to gain. And I think the expectations is huge. I do think the singles year round, just at least from my perspective, it has been the single biggest change that I've ever made to my training. And overall, I think that it's gotten way better because you're seeing a bigger talent pool, you're seeing more coaches, and a lot of people down talk that. But I think with saturation of an industry, I don't even think it's oversaturated because that implies that there's a small pool and there's a ton of people trying to coach. When in reality, there's a ton of coaches and there's even more athletes. So I think overall, you're just seeing a bigger connection of guys who are extremely talented. The third meet, they're already with a very experienced coach. Whereas back then, they would be very talented, have nowhere to go. Maybe they don't bring an undershirt to meets. They're kind of nervous, miss a bench command. I mean, you see so many lifters like that, especially 4 or 5 years ago, and they never really maximize their potential.
Bryce, before we go on to you, Jonnie, I have a quick question. Because I think you're one of the few that remember this, do you remember the deadlift video by a guy called Jay Rhodes that deadlifted 500 pounds? It was with red bumper plates. Yeah, 2011. See, you know what I'm talking about, where back then, like, people were questioning if that's the natural limit. Like, it was like 2011 and it had, 2 million views? And it's like he's 170 deadlifting 500 pounds.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, you know what I would also add is, as far as this is who Alan Thrall's associated with, of course, with barbell medicine, is I would say pain science single-handedly has been a huge influence also on powerlifting. Because when people were more afraid of positions and like even myself, I always had phenomenal form, being like not praising myself. I know I had very good form and I got hurt a lot because I didn't know exactly, at least for a time period, because I didn't know really what mattered and what doesn't matter. So now you're talking how many lifters, if you had every conventional deadlifter have to deadlift with a flat back with no deviation right now, how much would totals go down? A lot, honestly, from a lot of those small decisions. And same thing with knee valgus with Amanda and Daniela Mello, who are squatting nearly 600 pounds as women. They both have knee cave, where if 5 years ago, if everyone had that rigid way of thinking, they might tell them, hey, decrease the weight. You might get snapped up for life. And that would have a tangible effect.
Congratulations on stealing one of the things Alan was probably going to say. Bryce, what do you think, man? You've been lifting for a long period of time. What do you think have been some of the biggest changes you've seen in terms of coaching or just athletes, lifting in general? Some things that have trickled down to the average lifter.
So I think, and you kind of touched on this earlier, but I think there was a period of time, maybe around like 2008, 2010, where powerlifting was embodied by these 350 plus pound multiply suited wearing, bragging about their drug use. Like, this was powerlifting, right? Like the whole West Side movement and idea, and that sort of approach to powerlifting is very hardcore. And you know, I heard a quote one time like, powerlifting is dying in a bar fight or some shit like that. And I'm just like, this was like, that was the prevailing attitude. And I think that, like, with the advent of raw lifting and federations like the USAPL and the CPU and the IPF adopting that and putting that forward as an alternative, there were a lot more people that looked at that and said, shit, I can do this. That looks like fun. Like, there's this person and that person, like, representing all these different demographics who are partaking in this sport all of a sudden. And it just opened it up to such a huge number of people and increased the accessibility of the sport, which I think led to, like, just exponential growth. And it happened ironically around the same time that Instagram and posting workout videos and a lot of this kind of stuff picked up a lot more steam. So not only was it more accessible looking and appealing to people, but it was also getting put in front of more people. I did my first powerlifting meet in 2012, and I think there were, 14 lifters, 2 females, and that was it, and there was no, like, cameras there or anything like that. And just, seeing how far it's come since then to now, we're looking at, meets with, I don't even know how many people were at the last USAPL Raw Nationals. 10,000?
That was a lot.
Yeah, an insane amount.
Anyways, that's not like a totally unrealistic guess, I don't think. But yeah, so you went from that to this in 8 years. So I think probably the biggest thing has just been the growth of the sport from a numbers standpoint and a population standpoint. And obviously with that, the quality of coaching, the quality of lifting, you get into a bigger talent pool in both of those sides of the coin. And it puts a lot more out there that starts to become more and more interesting for people. So, I think it's been cool to see that kind of happen and be able to kind of ride along that wave of coming in when it was still pretty kind of, or maybe just on the verge of becoming more popular, and being able to watch it all happen has been pretty cool. So, yeah, that's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah. Mike, you've rubbed elbows with some of the strongest people. You've interacted with a lot of them. You've seen the equipped lifting where a lot of people don't have experience with that. I know Bryce does some equipped lifting now, but like people, multiply, getting slapped in the face, people saying they're gods among men before they begin a deadlift. You've seen it all. So you've seen probably the most hardcore that we talked about, buddy. You've been lifting for a long period of time. Talk to us about some of the biggest changes you've seen.
Yeah, I'm Junior Westside over here, not Mr. Westside, Junior Westside. I think to touch on both, I think general understanding of programming, strength conditioning, like Jonnie said, quality of coaches, and people just being interested. I assume all of us here are very similar, where we just like, man, this is kind of cool. We started to enjoy it, and then we just started to read, watch, listen to everything we could on the topic, and kind of filter out what we thought was bullshit, and start to experiment on our own selves or our clients what we thought maybe worked, and then refined our own things. And there's people out there. Shout out to you for really social media. Guys like Joey, who isn't a huge content creator, but he's well known. Lane Norton, Eric Helms, Bryce Lewis, all these guys that putting out content with things they thought worked, or putting out even just their journey, allowed us to all kind of throw feedback at each other. And that's how we all kind of became homies and stuff too. I think that accelerated the learning. So social media is a really big one. General understanding of strength and conditioning. Because when I started, there was two things. You did Westside Barbell to powerlift, or you did straight linear blocked stuff where you're doing 4 weeks of 10s, 4 weeks of 8s, 4 weeks of 6s, and then you pray where your 1 rep max is, or you're about to get pinned to the floor, and that's about all there was. And I think that's the majority of it. Obviously, social media allowed for Jonnie to shout out to him again, really make the USAPL popular. I think work that I've done and others done at Super Training, we're some of the first to throw out a bunch of like geared powerlifting and general stuff out on media. Alan came in lifting bricks in his backyard out here in Sacktown, Cowtown, and then it got refined, and guys like Bryce can really dig into programming, stuff like that, and Omar's just looking jacked in Canada, but it's just how it goes. And so I do agree with Jonnie. I don't think it's overly saturated by any means. I don't think, even though I want to be a hopeful guy, I'm a hater. I don't think cream rises to the top, sadly, because I think all four of you should get more recognition than you should in even general fitness, because powerlifting can translate to so many things, and that's why I enjoyed it. I've never identified as a powerlifter. Omar jokingly just kind of described why. I jumped into this world of bar fights and boots and denim jeans, and I was like, this isn't me. Like, I'm a little basketball playing kid from the suburbs that likes to deadlift. I just didn't relate. And I don't know, not getting sentimental. I'm just happy I found dudes like you who I relate to a little bit more, all you guys. But I think just knowing CrossFit is, I think, is another reason powerlifting got really popular. It found people barbells, and then they didn't like doing burpees, and they're like, fuck this, I'm gonna do some deadlifts. I think there's a lot of factors, and I don't see it stopping, to be honest. CrossFit's still declining because cardio is kind of boring and not very fun. It's too complicated, too much variation, I think. But and then guys like you opening facilities and having fun, just lifting with the boys.
Love it. Alan, thoughts?
Yeah, I think that in the past, powerlifting was much more of a lifestyle, right? Think old West Side Stories. It was more underground. All powerlifters were the same. We all wore single ply, ace bandage knee wraps. We were all juicing. It's kind of the same. that like stereotypical old school powerlifter. Whereas now I think that it's much more recreational. And I can't tell you how many people I run into being a gym owner who all walks of life, all different ages, all different backgrounds, who compete in powerlifting. People that you would say, if you were having a conversation with them on the street, oh, really? You lift weights? I had no idea. And people that will honestly sign up for a membership at Untamed Strength, having never lifted weights, and they say, I'd like to do a powerlifting meet. Now they're like 55-year-old dude who's never done anything. So it is a lot more recreational now. And I think that social media has brought a lot of light to it. And so I think that that's probably the biggest change that I would talk about, is that it was much more underground. Now it's kind of considered recreational. And further to make a point that we'll probably talk about later on, I think that a lot of people are upset right now with not being able to lift a barbell simply because they enjoy lifting weights on a barbell. So I think that you can point out, like I know Eric did a really good video on your channel just the other day, talking about how, hey, the literature shows this, studies show this, you in fact can maintain or even progress with bodyweight exercises with lower intensities. And I think that's interesting, but I don't think a lot of people see that and say, "Oh, I'm so relieved. Thank goodness. I don't need a barbell." People are like, "Yeah, okay, but I really want to lift a barbell." And so I think that that's something that should be said. And again, that's just my whole point, that it is a hobby that a lot of people really enjoy doing, and it is more recreational. Not everyone is lifting because of health and fitness. So anyways, I think I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but
Alan, I left my blood on the barbell, and if I'm not dying on the platform, it has no meaning whatsoever to me. So how dare you say that it's recreational? You don't know my life story. I do want to say, I think
so yeah, for like 90%. Surely there are some people who do it competitively.
Sure.
Even I think it's recreationally competitively.
Yeah.
But then there are some people who are saying, I want to go to nationals. I want to go to Arnold's. So there's that kind of top tier. And just myself with members at the gym, huge portion of them do compete, but they're just going there, putting up like 1,000-pound totals. You know, they just like powerlifting. And a lot of my clients that I work with, even most of them just like powerlifting, but they've never competed and they don't plan on doing it. So I think that should also be said. It's kind of just a means to exercise right now. Yeah. Whereas I don't think a lot of people in the 90s were hardcore powerlifters. That's just fun. You know, it was like, I want to compete. I want that 1,000-pound squat.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. My, there's so many things we could talk about. I do want to get sentimental for just one quick second, and I'll go around round table, just maybe a minute from each of you. Something maybe possibly that you miss from the last decade of training, as powerlifting has evolved, lifting has evolved, social media, all these things. If there's one thing, not that you could bring back, but maybe just an aspect you miss. One thing I'll say just real quick, so I'll start it off while everyone's thinking, is that when I joined in 2012 at Fortis Fitness with Sean, it was a real so the gym itself was 5,000 square feet. It was a good size. But when I would go to train with Sean, and he took me under his wing, and I'm forever grateful for that, it was just me and Sean. Sean, myself, and maybe my brother, and he'd be blasting Public Enemy, just like his tunes. He was very set in his ways. We're doing West Side. I said, like, yes, sir. Like, that's what we're doing. Cool. And it was very tribal. And of course, that could have a positive and negative, but it's like you're in group. You know what I mean? So now, like, I've brought you under my wing, and that kind of lineage of having the direct coaching where it's insular. So you want people to join your group. So Sean wants me to do it. He's going to make it as welcoming as possible. There's rites of passage. So it's like, we're going to do a 12-week, squat program where we're going to do the belt squat. We're going to work up to an RP 11. Where like you basically work up till you fail. It's not till you work up to RP 10. You go to RP 11. And all these things, does it make the most amount of sense in retrospect? No. But those sessions were kind of sessions where you bonded with one another, and then it made you more entrenched in what you're doing, right? Like you have a huge buy-in, like, oh man, the Monday's our big squat session. Like, I got to get prepared for this. It's not like you just go to the gym and say like, I'll do some deadlifts, I'll do some bench. I'm like, no. Blood vessels are going to be popped today, So I'm not saying we should bring that back, but I think the communal aspect, it's expanded. And as Alan said, it's much more diverse in terms of age groups, just the split between males and females, a host of different things that are super awesome. I think more people are doing it, but that community aspect where it's like real small. So basically like, yeah, we're entering this bar and like, we're going to have to lift together was pretty cool. So Jonnie, I'll start off with you. Anything that you miss over the last decade?
You know what? I would say probably two things. It's actually going to be something I don't think people would expect me to say, is I actually miss less efficient lifts. Because the one thing and this is actually one thing I don't like, is I actually do not like the grip width on the bench. I'm going to be outright saying that, is that I actually wish they had a rule to where 74 and 83 kilogram weight classes had pinkies in the rings. And you used to see a lot more of that, where now if you look at the top 74 benchers, I mean, there are guys benching 440 pounds at 163. So they obviously have to be efficient. They are jacked too, to be, to give their respect for sure. But I do kind of miss that, where you see guys who bench, I would say a lifter like Kevin Oak, you see his bench press, it is just full range of motion. He's just basically close grip, flat back benching 600. Yeah. It's unreal. On the IPF side of things, it's very difficult to get to that point. And what I would say also is what I think I miss is the possibility of the come up being quicker. Because basically back in the day, hey, if you squat 500 pounds, the world record might be 584. So, hey, you might be a year away from that. It really might happen. And the one thing that I fear now is as everyone's becoming more trained, and powerlifting is a unique sport where 10 years in, you get way better. You get, what do you think? You get 30% better, something like that if you look at the total. Whereas if you look at a sprinter, he's getting maybe shaving 10% off of his 100 for his whole life after high school to go from like a 10-1 to, or if he went from a 10-7 to a 9-7, which would be unreal, that would take forever. So I think powerlifting is unique where once you're the best is also the most conditioned, it's almost unattainable. And that's the one thing that I hope people don't get discouraged by now. I think in my era, you felt like you could be Jonnie Candito.
Right.
I think some people see Russell Orhe and they're like, I don't know if I could squat 700.
Yeah. I do have to give respect to the people that have, carried it out. Like I'm thinking Jonnie of Team Tibu Do, who like I remember when he started like 2012 lifting. It's like man, and now he's totaling what like 1600 something like that. Like he's doing great. So yeah.
You know what? I'll tell you. Can I say a story on that? And this is meant no offense to him, but it was literally like one of the most ungrounded moments I've ever had. Is Tim's total last, I believe it was 2019, was better than 2018. It was better than my lifetime best, flat out, because that was before I came back. I literally refreshed his page over and over again to see if someone pointed that out, just to see if someone would mention it, because I was so, it upset me so much. And when he helped at 7 plates, people would mention, oh, it's getting in Candito territory. I'm like, this guy he's better than me. He started later than me. Yeah. Like he reviewed my program with my shirt on it. And it's like, guys like that push you. Honestly, that was like one of the biggest sources of motivation for me is like, he's just flat out beating me and he's way more efficient at it. And I have to step up.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll just say a quick aside, Jonnie. I've had to let that go where I can't tell you the amount of people that have come to Fortis. They're like deadlifting 700 pounds, squatting 600 pounds. Like, oh man, like you got me into this lifting. I'm like, oh, again, like, all right, whatever. Like your ego just has to let it go. I'm like, you've become so much better than me. Yeah. Bryce, yourself, what's something you miss?
There's probably a couple things. And not necessarily like we've been saying, like not something that I would necessarily go back to, but when I first got into powerlifting, it was just like this all-encompassing obsession. It was everything that I thought about and everything that I viewed and everything that I consumed and just everything throughout my day. And there were parts of that were really enjoyable, like being that immersed in something and that dedicated and that like just soul focused. So there were some moments with that, like going into the gym and just training by myself in this dingy little shithole in the back of another gym with the music way too loud, not being able to hear myself think and chalk dust floating around. And just like, it was probably as close as I've had to like a spiritual or religious experience in my life has been some moments with powerlifting. And I think also like some of the larger than life, almost like WWE style personalities, like Kurt Karwoski. Like you just don't see a guy like that anymore. And not even necessarily that, like, I think that we should like exemplify that. He talked about like throwing plates at people and shit. Like, I don't know, but he's just like, it's just insane. I don't know. Like and coming up and watching like Power Unlimited for the first 14 or 15 times. And just like seeing him interviewed and just being like, oh my God, this guy is amazing. And having this kind of like reverence for that insane attitude towards powerlifting. I don't know if I miss it, but it was just like something that I enjoyed or that comes up when I think about fond memories. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mike, we bring back whiskey and deadlifts or what?
I think mine's actually like a combo of all three of yours. Was the beginning of my powerlifting where everything was inefficient. We had like a mega tribe. Like early days of my team was, I'm a big team sports guy, and maybe that's why I've never identified as a powerlifter. I just love basketball, I love the camaraderie, I love all that. And so it actually felt just as much of a team, although it's an individual sport. In my really early days, 2011, 2012, made some of my best friends there. We're maxing out twice a week. It doesn't matter. That's all I'm looking forward to is Tuesday. It doesn't matter if you feel good. It doesn't matter if you feel bad. And then going to Bryce's stuff, like the personalities in there. Like Even me, man, I'm 21 or 23. I'm like a pit bull, bro. I chewed out like 3 different people just for no reason. Like there's just testosterone in the air. Some dude's asking me about a belt while I'm chalking up for a max effort. I turned around. I said, I don't give a fuck about your belt. Bumped his fucking chest, gave him one, and hit my deadlift. Like you turn into an animal a little bit, and that's a little bit who I was as an athlete back in the day. So I think it's maybe the last time I felt like an athlete. I was kind of like that in basketball too. I was kind of an asshole. Now I just don't care about anything in life. I'm just cruise mode. I learned a lot from my boy Omar just to let the tides roll and figure it out as we go. But a lot of personalities in there. Guys chewed me out. Shout out to my boy Juan, dude. Like I haven't talked to Juan in so long. Geared bencher at Super Training. I think he's benched 705 at maybe 220 or something stupid. That dude yelled at me. I gave him a bad lift off, and I thought he was going to rip my head off for a bad lift off. Like I literally thought I was going to die that day. And I haven't talked to him in probably 3 years. I know right now if I text Juan, like, yo, dude, I got a flat tire. Come get your boy. He's driving. He's driving wherever he is. He's going to come help me. And there's stuff like that. My boy Fat Dan, Filipino Thunder. Some people may know. It was a different time, but. And maybe going back to the last talk a little bit about Candito throwing in the pain stuff, the people not knowing when they're hurt, when they're injured, what the hell is going on. It didn't matter. Man, it's Tuesday. I thought my spine was broken 5 places, but it's max effort day, baby. Like, grab that ammonia and get after it. Grab that ammonia and get after it, dude. Like, Biggie Smalls is on the radio. It's time to go. And against to reference everybody, I do think there's some of that needs to come back because I think, and I'm no doctor, no MD, but I think a big issue with the pain management stuff is people just haven't been athletes, so they don't know their bodies at all. And if you're not put on the line a little bit with some teammates and you haven't put your body through some stuff, how are you supposed to know when it's time to call the ER or when it's time to PR, if you know what I'm saying?
You know, I was going to say about that, Mike, it reminds me of so many different things where I think, not to erroneously quote the individual, but I remember Dave Tate talking about, he was spotting someone, or it was someone else, it may have been West Side Days, but they're benching, and the person basically snapped their pec while they're pressing. I think it was like 3 plates, and he just started laughing at him. And if it's not Dave Tate, I apologize, but he just started laughing, and they wouldn't help him like rack it back. He had to press it off, it just popped. And it's like, you got to rack that shit on your own. And they're just laughing at him. I'm like, man, this is the next level here. Or if you watch from T-Nation days, like his death squat, where it's just like this monologue of just some crazy shit going on. I'm like, this is next level. Like, Mike, this is us going to Austin, Texas and doing all that DMT over there, having an awakening that happened.
It is spiritual. Like Brett said, it'll change you. It'll change you.
Al, what about yourself, man?
So as far as what I miss in powerlifting over the past 10 years, I don't really consider myself a know-it-all with powerlifting. My first powerlifting meet was in 2013. Since then, I don't follow it that closely. I know enough to have a conversation about it, but I couldn't say like, yeah, powerlifting back in my day, times have changed. But I think actually, fortunately, I started lifting weights well before I knew about competitions, before I knew about powerlifting or strongman competitions. And so I just liked lifting weights, and that was in a bunch of different, fashions. And so I think now that, maybe during this whole coronavirus thing, powerlifting stripped away from me, and not a huge deal. I've been there before. I'm just going to keep training like I was before I knew what powerlifting was. But anyways, I think that, maybe not with regards to powerlifting, but what I miss from the past 10 years was a lot of kind of what Jonnie was saying about inefficiencies, and not really with regarding technique, but more of programming. Like I used to just go in the gym and do just whatever I wanted to do. But now I think that as more information comes out, I'm a bit, I hold myself a bit more accountable to say, hey, I know better ways to train. I know better ways to do things. So I should be doing that. Whereas before it was a lot more, I wouldn't say fun, but it was just a lot more like I just go to the gym and then on a piece of binder paper, write down what I'm going to do today because that's what I want to do. And so I think that some people do get a bit overwhelmed, kind of paralysis by analysis with all the information out there. So I do miss that, being, I guess, a bit naive with my training in the past, but it was really fun and enjoyable. And I think that as we get, more and more popularity on social media, we are somewhat held accountable to actually give good information. Whereas back in the day when I didn't have a YouTube channel, I didn't give a shit. Like if what I was doing like looked stupid, you know what I mean? But now I kind of like have to second guess, like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't be telling people to do this. But back in the day, it didn't affect anyone but me. So I would just do it because I wanted to do it. So I guess I missed that a little bit.
Yeah. Alan, let's start actually with, go ahead, Bryce.
Sorry, I was just going to piggyback off what Alan said a little bit there, and reference it back to another question that you had asked about ways to get back into training after all this is said and done. And I think maybe if more people took that kind of approach and just like went in and did whatever the hell they want to do in the gym, now that they have the gym, and just treat it like a playground for a month. You know, go in there and like leg press and then do bicep curls and then do calf raises and do 14 sets of chin-ups and then go home. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, 100%.
just go do shit that you couldn't do when you were locked up and have fun. And then eventually you can get back into something more serious. But I don't know, just a random thought.
No, I'm all the way in. And Bryce, that actually kind of leapfrogs into the next question, where I think Alan hinted at that. So I want to start with you, and then we'll go around the round table, where you said first we kind of need to define strength. Let's just talk a little bit of programming or how you approach it with a client, where there are individuals that are ultra specific. So they are powerlifters, right, where they want to compete in the big three. And then there's individuals, you've competed in strongman, you have a ton of clients that are not, let's say, powerlifting focused. Can we even define what general strength would mean? Like, can we define what that would look like if you're not focusing on the big three, but you want to get stronger? Like, how does it change for an individual? Because probably from those listening right now, and there's different splits, right? So it's not just, I'm a powerlifter, I'm not a powerlifter. But someone that wants to get stronger, but they don't plan on competing, maybe they also like their overhead press. It's like, how does that change for someone that wants to do powerlifting versus general strength training? And can we define general strength training versus something very specific like powerlifting?
Yeah, so I think that there are plenty of coaches who who do online coaching, but that's specifically for competitive powerlifters. So if someone came to them and said, hey, you know, I want some online coaching, don't really want to do squat, bench, deadlift, you'd say, hey, I only work with competitive athletes. In fact, this is no shade at all for Joey Flex, but there was a lifter at Untamed Strength who was being coached by him, made a ton of progress, a number of lifestyle changes, and he had to take a break from powerlifting. Like, I'm not going to powerlift next year. And Joey said, I'm not going to work with you anymore then. Like, he pretty much said, hey, will you write me a program? I don't really want to focus on squat, bench, deadlift. Joey just said no. Anyways, I don't even remember what the question was. I just started there.
Alan, can we first define?
Okay. Define. Yeah. So whenever I have a new client, I will always ask, what are your goals? What are you currently doing? And what do you have access to? And the majority of the time, even if they're not specifically wanting to increase their powerlifting total, or they're not wanting to be a competitive powerlifter, 9 times out of 10, I think it's just self-selecting, coming to me because of my YouTube channel. They'll say, I want to get better at the bench, squat, and deadlift. And so they want to get generally stronger, but they train in their garage with a barbell and plate. So it's like, all right, we're going to bench, squat, and deadlift then. And I think that they'll usually imply, hey, I want to get stronger. I want to build a little bit of muscle. I also like benching, squatting, deadlifting. So it's like, okay, well, you're going to power lift then, even if you're not going to be competitive. So I think everyone, all of my clients I've worked with, current and past, they all bench, squat, and deadlift in some capacity. There are some people who have a little bit more broad goals. They have more exercise, more equipment that they have access to. So it's tough to actually define strength, but I think that it's would really be whatever their goals are and what they have access to. I know that's not really an answer, but yeah, if someone said, I want to get stronger, but I'd rather not squat, bench, deadlift that often, then I'm gonna find other ways to express that strength. And again, that just comes down to what they have access to. I can't say, well, you know, true strength is Atlas stone loading. And they're like, well, I don't have an Atlas stone. I live in an apartment. So it's really tough, I think, to define strength.
I'm going to lay up that one and just say quickly, I believe it was Eric on an episode of Iron Culture where he said that strength needs to be expressed before it could be defined. Meaning, like, what exactly are we talking about here? It's like, okay, so I want to get better at the Atlas Stone. It's like, well, how do we approach that? It's like, what, like, this concept of general strength, like, yep, I'm prepared. Like, now I have the ability to do ABC. Would you say, Alan, before we go on to Jonnie, that there's certain movements that have better carryover than others? So, like, if you want to try and, improve your squat, maybe investing that time 3 hours a week might be a better idea if someone wanted to, also then maybe do a little bit of, I don't know, let's say strongman or weightlifting. That's a better investment of time than if they invested it elsewhere, like not the leg press, but let's say like another movement.
Yeah, I think that specificity is important. And so if someone said, I want to improve my barbell squat, I'm going to have them barbell squat quite a bit. And that's going to be the meat and potatoes of their programming. So yeah, I certainly think that specificity is important, and it is a skill that should be practiced. And further, even beyond that, I think that there are, rather than just saying, it doesn't really matter what you do whatever you want. I think that there are a lot of benefits to barbell squats, not only muscle building, improving strength, but also balance, coordination. So yeah, I think it goes beyond just saying, oh, you're just such a barbell enthusiast. I think that there are a lot of benefits of training with a barbell.
A barbell aficionado. Jonnie, the living embodiment, my friend, of the IPF. Talk to me. Can we define general strength? Like, yeah, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I don't know. Have you guys all seen the study that Greg Knuckles looked at in Mass on bench press range of motion? Mm-hmm. It was the one Chris Beardsley also did a write-up, where it's really interesting, where it was like the one of few examples that defied specificity, where a longer range of motion bench actually transferred better to every range of motion, which was very strange. And oddly supports my position on having regulated grip widths of the grip. It just so happens to. So I think there are certain areas where you can say the logic behind it's pretty weak. So what I would say is, and you do have to be very careful, because what Alan said is definitely what's most technically true. If we go beyond that, we really are just kind of giving our hot takes here. But what I would say personally, as someone who's pulled sumo with a max width, with a narrow grip, even in terms of feeling, it's almost like you don't even feel a particular muscle group reaching failure. It's like you just, especially with the deadlift bar, it's like it kind of comes up. You might miss it on balance. If you don't, you could probably rep it for 3 reps because the range of motion is so short, and your hips are sore after in a way that you don't even know if it's your piriformis or what. It's just something that's like a hip flexor feeling, and that's about it. So I think there are certain things when you look at, you could generally go with joint stacking, with range of motion or force production. I think there's something within reason where there's a middle ground. As far as what Alan was saying is actually a really interesting point, because it's come up with myself, is if I have clients right now who don't have access to the big three, I think there's also something to be said for scope of expertise when we're dealing with powerlifting coaches with general strength. So for example, and with priority. So there'll be some clients where, maybe they're on the edge of buying $300 to, let's say, $550 worth of equipment. And it's not the best, because you'd have to spend about $2,000 to get something, good. But if it's around $550, I just say, look, in the meantime, if you don't pay me, that will help you get to this point sooner. And you getting that at this point will matter more than whatever I know about body weight movements than you. Because to be blunt, on certain situations, I just go, look, I'm not that much more of an expert on activation on body weight squats than you are. So you really can get this done in the meantime. Whereas I have, a lot of experience as far as what to do with sumo pullers, what to do with this issue at this specific point. And I also think in terms of powerlifting growing, that increased knowledge base per lifting style is one of the things that's really changed, where Sean Noriega has a whole wealth of knowledge on specifically the wide grip, extreme arch bench press that you can learn from. But again, if you are just in this for general strength, you definitely can chill out about a lot of variables. And I actually think, to in a sense contradict Alan's point, that I think something that we should respect as far as today is when you talked about paralysis by analysis, is we also need to keep in mind how many more myths there were back then to specific rep ranges and to things that now we almost take for granted, that we know cumulative workload matters more. We know not to make excessive correlations to every little detail. Whereas I actually think back then you ironically had less preparation specifically for powerlifting, but you had more rules straight from Westside's rules where you have to do this, that, this, and that, when it really doesn't really matter.
You got to join everyone for that team Sunday breakfast, Jonnie. If you don't, your squat's not going to go up. That's the hidden secret in Ohio.
See you, Bob Evans.
I miss it, man.
Yeah, like you remember when Louis would talk about, he would compare like the bar speed to a deadlift versus the first part of a clean pull, and he would make some claim off of that. Where now we know, like, look, that's not your area, and I think that part is good. Where we go, okay, just no.
Yeah.
Or even within powerlifting, you make claims like your dynamic, bench day, you did threes because that's the time it would take under a max effort bench. And maybe
Right.
That's like some kind of data you can find, but my anecdotal evidence says nope.
Right, exactly.
Man. Bryce, what are your thoughts, my friend?
I think I'll probably just mostly echo a lot of what Alan said here in terms of like, it's just, I mean, if we're going to define general strength, like general strength in what? You know what I mean? Like it's very contextual. So as usual, the answer is like, it depends, right? But for most people, especially if you kind of look at our audiences, it's probably going to be squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press. I think there might be something to be said for having strength across different variations of movements. If you can take somebody who doesn't normally conventionally pull like myself, and they can actually conventionally pull really heavy, that makes them, in my outlook, generally strong. Now, my conventional pull is terrible. I'm not making an example of myself there. But, if you can take somebody who's usually a very wide grip bench presser and bring them in here, and they can still bench really respectable loads, that, appears more strong. If they can overhead press and load stones. And I think it's just a general ability to exhibit a sort of a top end strength across multiple disciplines, perhaps with a lack of formal training. But yeah, I mean, for myself, I'm not taking on any strongman clients. If somebody wants to do a bodybuilding show, they should go somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like my client base and expertise base is kind of like Jonnie was saying there. It's very focused around competing powerlifters who are trying to build a total. And who are willing to put in the work in this discipline more specifically, because the scope of practice, again, if somebody wants to do one of those things, they could spend their money so much better somewhere else. Like I'm not going to make any pretenses about getting somebody stage ready or any of those kinds of things. So yeah.
The secret is for that, Bryce, to get them stage ready.
The opposite of what I do with my nutrition every day.
Just tell them not to eat. It's real simple. Like, you give it a long enough time, you'll get lean. Trust me.
True.
Mike, what about you? What do you think in terms of this conversation?
Yeah. I mean, all philosophically or whatever, I think Eric hit it on the head. It depends on the function. You have to display something because people say that guy's a really strong swimmer. That guy's a really strong typer. And if you're a fucking assistant at an office, then it's how you display your talent or how you display your task. And that's end all be all. I hate the term functional. I hate the term fucking strong. I kind of hate all these terms, really, because same thing. Like, you guys probably get it the same. Like, probably the two top fucking messages I've gotten over 10 years working on the internet is, I hit a bench plateau. How could I bench more? Shut up, Timmy. And then the second one is, I'm blank years old. I weigh blank, and I bench blank. Is that strong? And I don't know, and I don't care. I really don't know, and I really don't care. And my answer to that is, again, going this philosophical route, if we're all going to be gurus here, is progress is strength to me. If you're 18 years old and you bench 205 right now, good job, Jimmy. If 6 months from now you bench 200, you fucking suck, Jimmy. Let's try to bench 210, 215, 225. And that's all it comes down to. And that's what it comes down to everything I do. Trying to be a strong human or a good human is trying to improve yourself, trying to be better week to week, day to day, month to month, how you treat people, how you treat yourself. What are we doing in the gym? Although we should have a good time and we should enjoy ourselves and we should worry about not having a heart attack and being strong and bone density and all these wonderful health benefits that come with the barbell. As Alan was going into, I do think the barbell is the most optimal tool for a broad range of strengths, and that's why it is. Powerlifting is what it is, and it can lead you down. Weightlifting uses powerlifting. Strongman uses powerlifting. Strength and conditioning sports uses powerlifting. But at the end of the day, if we're not improving, if we're not progressing, we're just all wasting our time on this little planet spinning in the universe. Am I right, Jonnie? Jonnie loves the. Yep, we're in.
Can I get an amen? Go.
What you was actually thinking, though, is about what you were saying as far as progress is I do actually think that's one of the reasons why people become attached to the squat, and in particular, a lot of times the high bar squat, is because just practically, I would say a high bar squat is typically the least dependent on conditions. So you could be in a really bad gym, have really deep hooks, the placement's too low, and it's relatively easy to unrack. If you have to walk back 7 steps, you're fine. I think a lot of times situations like that where you just can basically replicate your performance with no issue and add weight.
No A7 shirt.
Right, yeah. Because I mean, if you think about like a really wide grip bench, a lot of times just a lift off can change 30 pounds. Like it can get ridiculous. As far as deadlifting goes, the level of excitement can change 50 pounds on certain days. Whereas typically, if you're looking at kind of like we said earlier, Alan, about like 10 rep sets, things like that. If you do a high bar squat to a 10 rep set, if you did 335, you could probably go for 345. And even if you forgot something at home, it's not a big deal. So I think for a lot of guys at that level, it's really that's what matters. Then I think they attribute it to really specific arguments about the high bar squat and quad activation. And then that kind of gets debunked. And then they get depressed where it's like, okay, let's just zoom out. You were onto something. And then just roll with it. Because I think sometimes those guys actually do. I think for us, it's very easy to say, hey, don't become too attached to the bar since we're trying to respect our scope. But at the same time, a lot of us as athletes, I'm sure, had huge progress just by keeping it a little bit simpler. And I think a lot of people still need to hear that even from us is, look, maybe a low bar squat doesn't matter, but just actually tracking progress. And if none of your friends have ever tracked progress for 6 months in a lift, do that. That's it. And by the time you get to a point where this is relevant, you'll have a sport to train for. So that's what matters.
To go back to something that you were saying there, Jonnie, I think that relates to that sort of general strength discussion quite a bit. And it's that I think there's an element of resiliency, right? So if the conditions change, if things aren't ideal, if you get a shitty handoff, if you can't get your grip as wide as you normally do because the J hooks are in a different spot, I think some of those kinds of things lend to that appearance of general strength, kind of like I was saying, like being able to do it conventional sumo, whatever. So yeah, being able to sort of adapt to different scenarios and still display that ability, I think maybe sort of leads back to that discussion.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's interesting within powerlifting because things are getting more and more specific to the point where the one thing I truly don't understand, and Bryce, maybe you get this, especially since you're handling such heavy weights with equipment, is why do people care about the racks? Because I've even saw at that point to where people are complaining about like the type of rack, where it's like an ER rack versus a Rogue rack at a meet, where I'm like, I literally don't know the difference.
I've never experienced anything. I think the only argument that would make sense to me is the newer, more robust rack, like the Rogue rack, competition rack, because it's a 3x3 tubing. Or a 3x3 uprights, meaning that upright is closer to the comp plates, especially if you're using a 20 kilo bar. And so there's that, and not to mention when you're bench pressing, the spotter arms are also 3x3, whereas an Eleiko is like 2x2. Yeah. So you're closing the distance between the rack and the plates, and so I think that argument would make sense. But past that, yeah, I don't know.
I've seen some of that kind of reaction to racks getting changed last minute at meets and stuff like that, and it's like, really? I mean, I don't know. I've done meets out of these. Like, have you guys seen the Nova? It was a company that was here in Canada for a little while, and they made these. Their first generation of racks, anyways, were just so sketchy. And just like everything was wobbly, all the edges were sharp. Like there was a lot of that kind of stuff. And like I've done meets with that kind of equipment, and you would think, you know, based on the description there, that those might be a lower quality rack. But again, like I never noticed any real appreciable impact on my performance based on those conditions. Like I think there can be a case made for maybe different barbells, you know, especially when we're getting up into 800 plus pound squats. Yeah, you know, there's probably something there. But in terms of what you're unracking it from, like you should be able to do this out of a power rack, an ER rack, squat stands, really.
Yeah, monolift.
3 rack might be a bit of a bitch, but yeah.
I agree. I've done the opposite though. Like I've gone into meets in like 2013 that were geared meets, and the barbell's the size of a foam roller with goddamn daggers coming out of it. And I'm trying to squat 550, and it feels like you're fucking taking a telephone pole on your back and someone's stabbing you with a butter knife.
The axle bar.
Bro, it literally. Have you seen? I think it's the Bulldog or the. I don't
Wolf
know.
bar?
I swear, Wolf. Yeah, the Iron
This
Wolf.
thing handles 2,500 pounds.
I think it's like a 3-inch bar. Like it's fucking. I think it's loaded up to like 3K. It's what fucking.
I remember seeing a video on Super Training of a guy. He was like a politician or something. You know who I'm talking about, Mike?
Yeah, Ryan Spencer.
Yeah. He went to get under a bar and he took a piece of his scalp out with it, and it was one of those because he was in such a tight suit. He had to like stuff the guy to get under the bar, and he took a little piece of the top of his head out on it.
That jacks you up,
Man.
Yeah.
I've actually seen the opposite, I want to say, and just echoing what everyone's kind of saying here. One of the things that I'm not the biggest fan is kind of a little bit of that elitism or some of the neurotic tendencies. Well, I've actually witnessed, so Bryce, you have the same challenge plates I see at your gym. I've seen individuals.
I have those in my basement right now.
Yeah, that are in your basement. I've seen people enter Fortis, IPF competitors, and walk out after Sean gives them the tour. They take a look at the plates and they're like, oh, challenge plate, you don't have Alico plates? And Sean just like kind of looks at them because Sean's a very pragmatic person. Like it's a comp caliber plate, you know, it's good enough, like whatever, right? And he'll just look at them like, no, I don't. And they're like, and they're thinking in their head like, oh, is this gonna work? Oh, they're not Alico. I don't know. And they're doing these calculations, and I've seen people walk out. I've also seen people, like, I'm not trying to be cruel, and so I'm not going to name any names, but let's just say they're floating around the 300 Wilks category, get just irate at someone when they're doing their 4th set. It's a busy gym. This is a general gym. You can have your mom and pop go and train there. You got people that know nothing about powerlifting. We have rugby players. It's a very general gym, you know? But people getting irate where someone walks in before they begin their set. They're getting underneath the bar to start squatting, and their 4th set at RP7, back down sets after their top single, someone walking by just getting irate, like very mad, and I'm just looking at someone like, you walked in front of my phone when I was filming. I was like, man, like, you don't know how good Buttercup you have it right now. I would chill out. So I do want to circle back, and I think I want to start with you, Bryce, for this conversation right here, because and this is no insult, Sean Noriega is a boss with everything that he does, Jonnie, but I've seen individuals, I'd say, adopting an ultra-specific approach too early. So let's say an individual that's inside of 1 year of lifting. So dig this, Jonnie. Inside of 1 year of lifting, they're 16 years old. There's like a kid I'm thinking of specifically who has messaged Mike before for advice, and I think probably everyone here that goes.
And he might be on Twitch chat right now.
He's like, bro, I feel so attacked right now. But he's 16 years old. Okay, in terms of the total amount of muscle mass he has in his body, questionable. Body fat percentage, I rather not say. Bench press, sub body weight, but has already adopted the Sean Noriega arch. And he is so specific with his lifts. Like, he basically Sean's his boy, where his stance width on the squat and how he like concocts himself back is exactly that already. He hasn't even developed a base of, let's say, muscularity, or if we say general training, where it's like, yeah, have you done like some high bar squats? Like, are you going to that specificity of your low bar squat already? And he's like, and he made some initial gains. But now he's kind of plateauing around like a 1.5 times body weight squat, where, not like tooting my own horn or anything, there's a kid that's 60 pounds less than him that took one like the deadlift record and whatnot. I'm just doing very general kind of training. Like, he's doing some 3s and 5s, he's doing some singles, and he's just getting stronger. And you got this boy right here, like, setting up, you know, max comp with like arching it down. If he'll say like, "Oh, I got a bad lift off. Like my shit's fucked now. Like I'm gonna miss this single on the bench." Let's break it down. Let's give maybe some free training right now to every individual. Bryce,
no, dude.
I'm sorry, we got to do it. Everyone listening right now. If there's a hierarchy, or let's say the arrow of time, Mike, you introduced the concept of time, which was beautiful. The fourth dimension here of this conversation. Bryce, if you're to give some free lessons right now to someone starting from year 0 to like year 5, what are like the big factors they need to focus on? I know this could turn into an hour conversation, but just like, okay, you do form check days, the form check Thursdays, I think, where you take a look at individuals. It's like, all right, if Tiny Tim, I had to sit your ass down, and you're gonna get some of my best nuggets right now from year 0 to like year 5, when you kind of have a handle of things. What are some of those lessons, man? I know there's so many, and we're probably gonna miss some. Bryce, I'll start with you, then Mike, we'll go down. The floor is yours, my man.
Just train, man. Like, stop overthinking shit. Stop worrying about too many things at once. Stop looking too far ahead. Start just working, putting in work. Start trying things. Start recording your results with certain programs and certain grip widths and that kind of stuff. It's worth noting, but also start trying to be mentally strong. I think there's something to be said for a lot of high-performing athletes and their ability to adapt to circumstances, especially when you look at a competition setting where you go into the warm-up room and you know what? They got challenge plates back there. They got pound plates back there. They got an ER rack. That abomination is back there. Like, this shit happens regularly. You have to be able to adapt and overcome and whatever other cheesy scenarios cheesy cliche sayings you want to throw at it. But I think as much as it pays to get a little bit heady and analyze this stuff, you probably don't need to if you're inside of your first 5 or 6 years of training. You can probably just go in, try out some different like free programs, maybe hook up with a coach if there's somebody around you and you have some disposable income, or you really like somebody's training style. It's probably a good idea to start learning from a younger training age. But yeah, I think like it's tough to see where that line is, where you're getting too caught up in the minutia and just like missing the forest for the trees kind of thing. So just spending some time training hard, figuring out what works and what doesn't, and just like not worrying so much about optimal. I think everybody gets caught up in what program, what rep range, what exercise, what barbell, what plate, whatever, what's optimal. It's like, no, just do stuff and you'll get there. Just do stuff and you'll get there. I don't know.
I mean, this guy almost deadlifts 900 pounds. Maybe you should heed his advice. I don't know. Okay, I don't know. Mike?
Yeah, I think similar things. And I think this is where the conversation of general strength does come into play. And general strength, just as specific strength, I think is a branch directly off the specificity. So again, going to an extreme of I'm a really strong typewriter. My general strength for typewriting might be having my morning cup of coffee and my fucking water next to me so I can sit at my desk for a long time. There's the end of the analogies team. But point being that if you're a really wide grip bencher like Omar's example, and you've only trained 0 to 2 years and you're benching 315, but you can't go over the dumbbells and just manhandle some 80s on incline without a lift off, you probably need to up like just some general muscularity and training. Now, to say that my dumbbell incline press increases 10% every time I hit a 1 rep. Like now that's when we start to get into some things that probably just don't matter and don't work. And that's where you have to experiment, like Bryce said. Also, if you're Jonnie and you're, 4 months out and you're trying to go to IPF Worlds, you probably shouldn't just hop over to Allen's and say like, bro, fuck it. Let's throw some stones around. Like that's when things probably don't need to do some general training. But for me or anyone else that's maybe not as serious or more of a beginner, and Allen, you see your homeboy Allen over there chucking around some stones or sandbags, you're like, bro, let's throw around some sandbags. Like have a little bit of fun. And there's some functionality to that, I think, too, where me and Omar have had many discussions of like, I'm pretty blessed to have like my bro days behind me where I was doing arms for 3 hours straight every single Monday. I think that helped me mentally, and I do think it helped me physically, not only to know like what's probably not to do, but to build some muscularity. Like we talked about poor Sean, we're bragging on him all day, but Sean's fucking jacked.
He is.
That dude can That he can do whatever the hell he wants
Yep.
right now. I really don't care. And you can't compare yourself to him. One, he's a generally strong dude. He's probably just a good athlete. I think he was pretty good at baseball. Two, he's fucking jacked. And then three, obviously he knows a lot about powerlifting and more specifically what works from him, which is just to resonate what Bryce was saying. By doing a whole year of I'm just going to do close grip because I want the biggest triceps in the world, that might figure out something down the road that close grip either really does help you or it really doesn't help you. And so experiment, have some fun, get a little bit stronger, and it is a time to do, I guess, quote unquote, bodybuilding movements, in my opinion. To not get the arc of specificity also comes with the arc of your training age. There's guys out there. I think Sean is one of them. I think I read an Instagram. Poor guy. Love you, Sean. Someone said something like, "Wow, dude, you're doing a fucking variation or something" in his comments because he's so specific to the squat, bench, dead. But he's at such a high level, you can't just randomly wake up and say like, "I'm gonna do deadlift chains today and see what happens." Like, no, he needs to tweak these things very that is when the minutia matters, and you need to get into where you're going rather than you're little Timmy and you're benching 315 and really want to do 4 plates in 2 years. Bro, throw on some reverse bends. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, but
Do your 3-hour arm days now so you don't look like me in 5 years.
Yeah, fucking do some biceps, baby.
Yeah, I do want to give just before I go to Alan, respect to Sean Noriega, because it's not reflective of it's not a reflective of his training methodology whatsoever. It's more kind of, I think, what Bryce said, where you might find a lifter you like, but this kid's just jumping on way too soon, way too early, where he just has bone and adipose tissue. You know, like I'm trying to find the muscle, Jonnie, and I can't really see it on his frame.
Yeah, can I? Yeah. I do want to. I was gonna wait until my turn to say it, but now since we've mentioned Sean enough, because I do want to say that he has literally called this out in his own stories. Yeah. So he actually is strongly against that.
I'm sure
he's all for.
He's smart.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that especially we mentioned about the baseball part. He actually has a full video on YouTube that it's why former athletes are better powerlifters. Yeah. So it definitely is one of those things where it's really with respect to the individual timeline. And even those guys don't let it just cloud their judgment. Like, they know what they're doing is entirely different than what they did 4 years ago.
Yeah, and for the viewers, Sean is the guy we're bringing up because his form and most of the lifts, especially the bench, are very specific and like stand out in your mind. That's why we're referencing him rather than if we said like Russ's form kind of looks like every other dude's form.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Alan, besides not moving the barbell, what do people need to know?
So I think that just to kind of continue with what you guys are talking about with specificity, I think that optimal training, again, does depend on the client's goals. So if they were to say, I want to compete in a powerlifting meet and I want to total 1,500 pounds, optimal training is going to be much more rigid for that person than if someone was to say, yeah, I want to get stronger, don't really want to do this, I'd rather do that. At that point, optimal is really what they're going to adhere to. So I do think that optimal does depend on the individual. And I think that there can be an optimal program if someone has very concise goals to say, I want to win nationals, then you would say, okay, well, this is what you're going to do and you got to make it happen, versus someone who just has really general goals. But more of the question that we're all answering, when you were talking about the kid, I think at Fortis, right? The guy you were talking about, I think that he is a classic example that I see often of people who I talked about earlier, people who get into powerlifting and that actually gets them into lifting weights. Whereas for myself and probably you guys too, I actually fell in love with lifting weights and just training well before I started competing. And I think that that's valuable in times like these when powerlifting's not there. I'm cool. I'm still going to train. And there are actually members in the past at Untamed Strength who have said something like, hey, school's starting up, so I'm not really able to powerlift for the next several months. So I got to cancel my membership, and I'm not going to ask questions, but I'm just thinking like, okay, you can still lift weights, you know what I mean? Just because you can't competitively compete right now. So yeah, but with all that said, I think that it's difficult to just say, well, you got to fall in love with lifting weights first, because honestly, if I'm being blunt, some people have it, some people don't. Some people really love lifting weights. No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
Some people really love lifting weights.
Right.
And some people probably don't get a whole lot of enjoyment and never really will. And at that point, if I was working with a client who doesn't get a lot of satisfaction out of lifting weights, but I know there's a root cause or a reason why they're wanting to actually train, at that point, I would go back to what Bryce was saying, and they need to learn how to develop some mental toughness, cultivate some discipline in order to adhere to the program. But I'm fortunate enough that I really enjoy training. I'm sure all 4 of you are the same way. So I think that should be addressed at least. And again, like I said, not everyone has it. So it's hard to say, gotta love lifting. If you don't love lifting weights, get the fuck out. Because not everyone's going to. You can't just tell someone to enjoy doing something.
Alan, be honest with us. After the guy said, I got to cancel my membership. Yeah, cool, dude. And then you just charged his ass for an extra year.
Yeah, you signed the contract.
Nope. You just say nope.
Blood in, blood out.
Jonnie, what about you, my man?
Well, I would, obviously, it's going to be echoing some similar sentiments, I think we could do to really figure out the best is to reverse engineer how we got to where we are. And a lot of times it's far more complex. So, for example, with myself, I wanted to play basketball at first. Then, I'm 5'7.0 at best, and then that falls off. Then you get to a point where I went into long jump. And, what's actually a funny story is when I was, and I long jumped only 21 feet, it was nothing particularly good. But, what's funny is that when I was at track practice, there was actually a time where my squat went from basically 425 to 465 in like 5 months. And my coach outright did not believe I hit depth. Like, he was like, are you sure you hit depth? And I was just like, I'm pretty sure. Like, I know this stuff. I'm pretty sure I did. And it's situations like that where basically what you have to look at is back out and say, what's the most important thing with success in a sport? We all know it's genetics. We all know that that's what separates, the very elite from everyone else. So
and steroids.
Yeah. So basically, if you're trying to force feed yourself into one route, what you're doing is you're limiting the odds that you are going to be the genetic freak, because you might be a genetic freak in one sport. Like when it comes to lifting, I was the strongest on every social scenario I've been in. I was the strongest at every school. And then I went to a weightlifting training center for 1 month before I quit. And there I was the strongest and totally disinterested in weightlifting. But my point is, look at how much that took, that self-selection, by giving myself room to do whatever I wanted. And then I'm barely holding on now, where there's more population increase and there's going to be more genetic talent with that. So luckily, I'm just talented enough to be able to be 9th at nationals, things like that, to stay in, be primetime. But it's very, very difficult. And the way you have to look at it is the genetics being the most important. And what's the second most important? Duration within the sport. So if you're going to be out of the sport before 10 years, you will never reach your prime. Whatever you're doing does not matter as much as that. Those two things really take over everything. And actually, I'm going to piggyback off of Alan's coaching crew again with I've seen some snippets of the book Range. Have you guys, I'm sure Alan's heard of it from Austin Baraki. Yeah. And exactly. And I think it made a lot of the same points where when you basically force someone into elite soccer from a very early age, they actually typically don't work out. And I think the only thing that is interesting, and it connects back to my first concern with powerlifting, is in that, at least in a speech he gave, he said controlled environment sports like chess were actually different. That if you did specialize in chess very early on, you just flat out did succeed. So what I wonder is, with powerlifting being a relatively closed environment sport, if it will eventually get to that level, and I hope it doesn't. That's the best way
I would assume not. I would just assume not, based on other countries in weightlifting. I know China
doesn't China do that?
Pretty young, but I think they throw them through a bunch of general training of gymnastics and some stuff before they throw them in there. And because chess and powerlifting are just so, I don't even know if chess is a fucking sport. Let's just
hey, let's pump the brakes right now, okay? On that, Mike.
That needs to be deleted.
That's a game or a competition or something.
Gary Kasparov just joins the conversation out of nowhere. It's like, are you kidding?
You can competitively do it on my PC, then it's not a sport any longer. I can't competitively powerlift on my PC. I can competitively chess on my PC.
So our boy Ryan's going to be offended. So you're saying that esports gamers aren't athletes, is what you're saying? Let's get the hot take right now.
I would probably say no.
Okay.
I would probably say no based on the definition of sport.
Okay.
I would probably say no.
Yeah, actually, you know what? Another thing I wanted to add is that this is an example that I use all the time. Is that you guys know of Ashton Eaton?
Yeah.
He is the best decathlete of all time. Did you know he almost played D3 college football?
Yeah,
He almost went that route. And if he did that, it's like you just think that would completely shift his trajectory. So it's really a matter of opening up the options enough to where if he was just determined, how do I become an NFL player? How do I make sure no matter what, I'm the best NFL player possible? And if you lock in like that before opening up your options, you may just not reach your potential, not realize how much easier it could be. Because let's face it, when you are at least reasonably gifted at something, or very good, like I'm sure Bryce has situations where it's like, you have situations with clients where you know it's just going to take so much more thought to get them to progress. Whereas you could get the big name client where honestly, sometimes it's just easy. And sometimes you just throw anything at them and they progress. So it's really a matter of opening up your options, and you might put yourself in that situation. Maybe it's not something exactly what you envisioned, but sometimes you just don't know what you will even want down the road anyways.
That actually makes me think when you said the decathlete there's a Canadian sprinter by the name, I think, Andre DeGrasse. I don't know if you saw him, where he wanted to play and he wants to play basketball. He's actually disinterested from what what I've heard from the coaches at Altus and where he's training, that he basically sprinting, he's like, it's okay. And he plays third in the world and he's not that regimented with it, but he much rather have been a basketball player. And that's just so funny because his arc towards basketball was NBA, very questionable, but sprinter's like, dude, you could be a world-class sprinter, and just like kind of the interest that he wants and where he wants to go. Yeah.
And if you think about the percentage of, I think with people watching this, most likely they're in like a senior in high school or underclassmen in college. Just look at your friends and think, how many of your friends for 5 years trained? Probably under 1%, realistically, as far as training every single month. So if you just get to that point alone, you're already far ahead. And then from there, you can just decide on the direction.
Yeah, to wrap that around, that's another situation why powerlifting's grown and stuff too, or changed. What's changed most in 10 years is just the talent pool. Like I was like Jonnie just said, you're like, I was always the strongest in my social setting. Like I was like kind of strong for a basketball player, but I was never the dude just yucking people left and right. Like a lot of my buddies that we benched with in high school, shout out my boy Chris, he's my best friend. He was always stronger than me, like just always stronger than me regardless. I was always like like you're stronger than the frail little pale kid in the corner picking his nose, but I was never like that strong guy. And genetics do rule all. But if you don't test things, like you said, you'll never know. David Robinson, another one, college swimmer, I think, for the longest time, ended up in the Navy playing basketball in the NBA. I mean, it's a little different when you're 7 feet. You kind of know what range. But it's the same thing with powerlifting. We can honestly do it. Like there is a prototype body for powerlifting almost as much as there is for the NBA. Like you see a dude with a tiny little torso and some fucking orangutan arms. You're like, yeah, bud, head over this way.
You don't look at Ed Cohn and think that guy's a good basketball player. You know?
Yeah. Right. Throw a real cannon.
Now, I am very aware of everyone's time, so I don't want to go on too long. This has been a fascinating conversation. I think now that we're going to be quarantined for at least another month, we probably should do a sequel if everyone's down and willing. I think maybe at this time, the note I probably want to end it on, because there's so many ways we could spiral off the conversation, is just talk about the future of powerlifting or strength training. And I'll kick it off probably first to Jonnie, because you've been in it the longest. Just the idea, like, Jonnie, do you think we've reached, so it's two factors. And my personal thought is that I think we've reached the peak in terms of new participants entering yearly. So the growth. So we're taking a look at the growth of powerlifters competing at USAPL, where there might be more. So let's say there's 80,000 members. Next year, there might be 90,000. But the rapid expansion has already happened. And there'll be, again, more participants, but it'll slowly reach whatever level it'll be and probably level off and then slowly wither away. Whereas I think that people generally training for things other than aesthetics in the gym will continue to increase. So where do you see the future, Jonnie, let's start with you, of powerlifting and just boys and girls with barbells in the gym? Where do you see the future of that from 2010 now to 2020?
Or do you mean 2020 into?
Oh yeah, 2020 into the future. Yeah.
Okay, so overall, what I think has to happen, and I do think this is a really big concern, is what has to happen is there needs to be more steps similar to high school sports. I think that's really going to determine the trajectory of powerlifting. Because I do agree. Actually, there was a visual by openpowerlifting.org. Now, they only took the data like 2 months out from the end of the year, but it actually did show membership did not grow. It actually went down slightly, but I think by the end of the year, it still did grow. But like you were saying, definitely the rate of growth has slowed down. I think what we're going to need is retention of that kind of upper middle class of powerlifting, so to say. Because right now we're at a point where, like I said, let's say for myself, I totaled 1642 at nationals in pounds. If fifth place was 1658, it's very possible I could total 1700 and get like 8th or 7th now. It's at that point where, as far as the specific lifters that's on my mind. So at some point, you go, if you need 1700 to really stay relevant, then what are you going to do with everyone else? And what I think they need to do is have a districts. I think they actually just started, for those unaware, regionals around 2 years ago. The only problem is that there's no feeder into regionals with USA Powerlifting, and nobody really cares about it. It's more of a last-minute qualification. So I think we need to model it after high school sports and after CrossFit, because CrossFit also has that social hierarchy. Where it's like a team setting, and you go, hey, look, I'm a regional level powerlifter. I'm a district level powerlifter, or I went to semifinals. Right. I think we need more of that. And USA Powerlifting just raised the qualifications, but there's an incentive structure issue. The more they raise it, the less money they make. Right. And if they make a ton of money, right. So it's like, no matter what, if the incentives are inverted, you'll never see the problem fully solved. So overall, I think that's going to be the one thing that's the main issue. If that's solved, I think the growth will continue, and we need more meets like the Sheffield meet where they're actually going to pay out for the winners. I think you absolutely have to have that level of retention. Otherwise, I think we've never really seen a Jesse Norris who's 34, who's perfectly peaked, who's in his prime. And imagine if you had lifters like that, and there are 10 of them. Then if you're just starting into the sport, what's the point if you're not going to make any money from it? And it's just, at some point, it absolutely has to take 5 to 10 years. Right now, it doesn't, because there's a mismatch where guys like myself who've been in it for about 10 years, I'm not as gifted as a Russell or a John Hack, who is able to basically just come onto the scene, dominate, and they have more to go. But once they're 33, and if they stick with it, I think then that next generation needs more support. So overall, I just think that's what's going to come down to. And honestly, I don't know the answer to that.
Sure.
I think it comes down to the leadership. A lot of these federations, as Bryce can probably attest to, have actually done a really good job at adapting. There was a time where they kind of had that old school mentality, weren't necessarily welcoming to internet types. It was more of that. You have in 2012, you had a national meet in a church in Killeen, Texas, and they were just like mean. They were just outright mean to me. And I was like, I don't even know what to do. And I bombed out, and I'm like, well, that's but so I think things are getting better. But again, it's, can we make state records matter?
Right.
I found out I have the Ohio State record. It's like, do I care? Like, I don't know. I found out after the fact, so obviously I don't care that much.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I honestly think everything else will continue to succeed because of what Alan said, as far as people come in to either lift or power lift, and a lot of times that line's not particularly clear. And in the end of the day, getting stronger in the squat especially, I think is the most universal typically for a lot of sporting demands. So I think the interest will always be there. The question is going to be, will it be mismanaged like thousands, like the kind of West Side era? And in the end of the day, the past is the best predictor. We saw Ed Cohn on ESPN2, or wherever he got on, right? And then we saw it kind of fall off. And I think in the end of the day, it just has to be managed right, or else everything could fall off. This momentum we have could.
Yeah, a quick tangent before I go on to Bryson. I'm just curious about your opinion on this, Johnny, because we've seen actually recently the strongman rise of the Giants on YouTube, where they're getting hundreds of thousands of views, which have kind of just completely eclipsed, let's say, powerlifting content. And so now you're seeing the freaks, and there's not that stratification where it's like, I'm the regional strongman, I'm this. It's like you have the NBA player, so you have the strongman, world's strongest man, and everyone else. Do you think it's essentially important to increase incentives, either financially, so Sheffield is what you're saying, to keep people participating, or that upper middle echelon of lifters, but also the social initiative? I almost feel where I see comments sometimes now by guys, which is funny. It's like I squat 600 pounds. How come I don't have any followers? Like, how come this guy, like, they'll point at me, how come this guy has followers? Where, you know, 5 years ago, if you squatted 600 pounds, that was enough social currency to get your name abroad. But now the social currency has gone down because it's so ubiquitous. So you're saying also there needs to be financial incentive. I totally got you. But you think also there needs to be some sort of social incentive to keep people that, you know, get interested, because it's like, shit, I could grow a following from this. There needs to be some sort of stratification where I'm like, I am the state Ohio guy. Like, that actually means something.
Yeah.
Yeah. The idea of being able to get paid from a barbell sport directly, not indirectly through, you know, creating content and releasing programs or whatever, but like directly, like you lift a barbell and you get paid for first place, is kind of a outlandish concept.
Yeah, what I think also is going to be a really big factor is sustainability with that, because for some reason with powerlifting, it does seem like the mentality is to just bomb payments, just with a huge. It's like with Kern, even with untested powerlifting, is to have just hundreds of thousands of dollars given at a meet where under 10,000 was given or less, you know, before that.
Yeah.
And then realistically, how long can that maintain? You know, it's maybe 5 years of just some rich guy who's, I actually think I heard that it is just like some guy who's like a neurosurgeon type guy.
Yes.
And I don't think that's sustainable. And kind of to Mike's point is, I think we could find a middle ground where you say, okay, how much interest is there? How many views on the stream? With the USAPL, Raw National's got like 90,000 views. You go, okay, there's something there. And I think if they could figure out a way to have advertising money then get distributed somehow to lifters, and somehow have more of a collective bargaining similar to other sports. Now, obviously, enough money needs to be involved for it to be worth it. If you're just giving out like $2.50, that's not really worth it. But I think if there's just some way of scale. But also, one thing that I wanted to mention is that I think a big factor with powerlifting growing also is the different types of people who are promoting it. Is that now, from my perspective, I can reach a certain audience. I can say without a doubt, coming from Texas, Bart Kwan's influence in certain circles is massive. Yep. It's really unbelievable. Like, there are certain people where everybody has a Barbell Brigade hoodie. And then with someone like Russell, I don't know if you guys seen it. At one point in time, Jim Jones, who made Ballin', commented on Russell's.
Who made Ballin'?
Can
you
you
just like sing it for me or something? Let the people know you said it so matter of factly.
No, I just he's kind of fallen off now. No, he's not really in these streets anymore. But what I was also saying is that Adrian Peterson had one of Russell's hoodies on, or his headband on. Now, I have no idea what went on with that, but I was just mind blown at that. And then what the last person I'd say is Meg Squads, who we haven't mentioned until now, is just a huge factor in terms.
She was on my box of cereal.
Yeah, so it's like I think with powerlifting is we'll continuing to see this expansion of people with different audiences, and I think we will have to keep the entrepreneurship alive, because right now there is no structure. So if one of those types of people leaves, I do think the damage to that could be pretty significant. But as long as they stay in it, then they're already reaching their audience, and then someone else who's somewhat similar to that and maybe would never have started with me will then start up. And I think that's going to be the way that it becomes sustainable and undeniable in the future.
So you're saying, Johnny, essentially that we can't rely upon rich neurosurgeons doling out money, or potentially Lair Wheels going to Dubai to just make some money over there. We need a system in place here. We need stratifications. We need incentives for people in order to stay in the sport.
We can't have like a world champion who's just in some backyard in Kentucky, and then that's it. And that's the extent of the talent pool.
Man, Bryce, what do you think, buddy?
I think vote Jonnie Candito, 2021 IPF president.
Mm-hmm.
honestly, like a lot of those ideas I think are really well thought out, and a lot of that seems to take care of some of the problems that we see with the organization and the structure, or lack thereof, in a lot of powerlifting. And I think if we want it to continue to grow and continue to be or become more taken seriously as a sport on a lot of levels, then I think some of those things are really good strategies to get there. And I guess in terms of what I see for the future of powerlifting, I hope it's that, more or less. I hope that we continue to make strides in, like Jess Butner, a Canadian lifter. I'm sure you've probably all heard of her by this point. She was on ESPN's Instagram, for example. They don't have any other sports to cover, so like, let's capitalize now, guys. Which is fine. Like, sure, post all the powerlifting you can. But yeah, I hope that we continue to head in the right direction, and see more growth and benefit and incentive for people to do this, because I don't know, it's just something that I'm very in love with and very happy to help bring to other people. Also, I think it'd be an interesting topic to even just like think about where we're going to see that ceiling, or where we're going to see these feats of strength start to level out, or if we'll ever see that, what the limit is. Especially we're looking at like, potentially multiple people squatting 1,000 pounds raw in sleeves, in a drug tested federation. So, like who's the next Ray Williams, and how much further is that guy going to take it? I think those are interesting things to think about. And some of these lighter bodyweight guys in the 83s and 74s, and where's the limit? I'd be really interested to see where the juniors of the future will take things, even just in terms of the feats accomplished within the sport.
Bryce, well said, and completely unrelated. I just have to thank my CBD sponsorship, Blaze It Athletics, which allows me to have clarity of thought, mental preparedness, and toughness that allows me to get on with my day. You could use code BLAZEIT at checkout for $0 off. Mike, where do you see the future of the sport?
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. It seemed for a while it was growing so rapidly and expanding so rapidly, especially, again, shout out to Jonnie and a lot of you guys, Omar, Alan, Bryce, Meg. A lot of people brought attention to the USAPL, which is awesome. They do have at least some kind of structure, bracket system to get to nationals and worlds. And not that, again, it has plateaued, but the rate of growth has slowed a little bit. And personally, I'm okay with that. I think that powerlifting, and I'm not in the competitive seat that Bryce and Jonnie are, I do think that they should get paid for their efforts and for their talent. I'm all for all that, and I'm great in it expanding that way. But I think it is cool because it's a niche, and I am a bit of a hipster in that way. But powerlifting is such a unique sport, I think, where, again, I was talking shit, but it's not really for spectators. And the amount of athletes that compete in it are probably, I'm making this up, but it's a small percentage of the people that, again, if you squat, bench, and deadlift, to me, you're a power lifter, right? And if you want to get better at those, you're power lifting. So I think in that category, I think it's going to grow forever, hopefully, although fitness always goes in trends. So the next time a CBD-infused electromagnet can maybe grow my bicep, we may be out of some dumbbell and barbell users. I really don't know. For the sport specifically, I do think it kind of comes down to business and politics. Jonnie mentioned raising the requirements to go to nationals, at least in the USA, and obviously that's what we can mostly talk about because it's where we're from, and it is a large percentage of powerlifters. I like that move on a competitive level, but obviously business-wise, I'm not affiliated with anybody, so I can talk mad shit. Poor Bryce and Jonnie are involved in things, so they got to watch their tongue. There's a lot of money floating around in a lot of these companies. There's a lot of money floating around in a lot of these federations. I haven't looked into it that deeply. I'm not that interested, but I do know that there is some confusion on how, when, and where it's being used. So I agree. I don't know if it's some kind of collective bargaining, some kind of union.
Can I add something real quick?
Hit me.
Just as far as that is that, because this actually was a recent change, is that around 2 years ago, they actually just stopped giving all of the money to the meet director personally. So the USAPL is a nonprofit, but a meet director is a contractor, basically, to my knowledge. So I kid you not, it's $1,000 or $150 per person, and it's over 1,000 people. So we are talking.
I'm not good at math, Jonnie.
$150,000 to $200,000, and if you profit that, you could literally keep all of it. Now, I'm not gonna say any specific figures, but now at least they just changed it to where the federation keeps it, which you could still say who knows how much that's going to circulate, but at least it has to be on their official statements and all that. So what you said is exactly right, though, is that luckily it's moving in the right direction, at least from my perspective, which is a biased one, though, of course.
Yeah, and again, it's just a matter of that. In terms of the strength stuff, like Bryce is saying, where it's going, I think I don't think we scratched the surface, man. I don't even think we scratched the surface. If we're talking to our previous conversation of exposure to a sport or exposure to a talent has to be number one to even know if you're good at it. I could be the best fucking a crocheter on the planet.
Chess player, maybe.
Potentially. I probably only played chess a handful of times. Potentially, I got that mind. But until you do it, right? So, again, even mentioning like a guy like Adrian Peterson. And these are all strength gym room rumors. But, like, supposedly that fool just randomly squats 650 pounds. Like, whether it's depth, who knows, whatever. But there's bigger freaks out there that we've seen that do not compete in the USAPL. And that stuff excites me. I love seeing good athletics. I love people seeing hard. But I do think as we previously mentioned, is kind of like the middle class of powerlifting is going to bring it to the future. That's the majority of people, obviously, from the elite, where in majority of other sports, it is the elite guys that carry a sport. Why does little Timmy pick up a basketball? It is probably because of LeBron James. And there is some of that in powerlifting, I think. I think some people first pick up a barbell because of Ray Williams, but I think the majority of people just like training and like the sport of powerlifting as a hobby. So I think that's kind of the world we have to nurture a little bit more.
Alan?
Yeah, I hope that powerlifting starts to die off quickly because last time I competed, it was $100 for a local meet, just the entry fee. I had to pay something like $65 for membership. There were like 80 lifters. The comp took like 9 hours, and then there were so many people in the room in that tiny gym that I had nowhere to put my camera tripod, so I couldn't even record.
Yep.
And get this, they were even letting women compete in these things. And so, okay, I'm done. No, I got nothing. Everything that they said, I think was very well said. And I think that those are actually good plans and ideas if we are brainstorming about how to grow the sport. And I have nothing to add to that.
Look,
the women's.
We're all just getting hyped for Half Thor, as we know, to Elephant Bar 1,100 pounds on May 2nd, okay? There's no other event. Like, powerlifting is 2019, 2020. We're just going to see these freaks of freaks do lifts that no one possibly can do, and we're just going to reward them with our dollars.
On Instagram. We're just going to view it all on Instagram.
And OnlyFans.
Oh, OnlyFans. It will be interesting. I think people will always be lifting with barbells, and I think it already has established a certain amount of social currency and inertia, powerlifting to sustain itself, at least for some time. Kind of what Jonnie was saying about, let's say, retention. So if he competed in 2014 and none of those same athletes were competing in 2020, so that turnover rate's very high, and let's say you have, 300,000 members across the USA, and you have, a 5% growth rate, but then your retention, like every single year, like 10% drops off. I'm like, you're screwed in a while. I think we haven't reached the ceiling yet, and I think there are more things people can do. And I think we saw the recent explosion thanks to social media that happened, where people are like, oh, I could get strong and people are gonna like me, and now that's kind of maybe being removed from them. So they're having this inner existential anguish, like, why am I doing this? It's like, I did it for the attention. So if you could add those back in, I'm actually blanking on the weightlifter's name. The guy, there's a story, I think is World Weightlifting, the Instagram, but just showing how money can be a big incentive. Russian weightlifter. Obviously, I think is, I'm going to butcher his name, like not Tarankenko, but he was a beast of a lifter in the late 80s. I think it was like 1990 he did this lift, where essentially he was at an Australia regional meet, and he's a world-class lifter. Like, this is like a qualifier. It's not important. He has it in the bag. First place all day. He doesn't have to break a sweat. His first lift, he's going to qualify for like Worlds or whatever. But the meet director just said out of the blue to him, he said, hey man, like if you set a record here, he wanted some notoriety. Like, I'll give you my like Ferrari or Lamborghini. And the Russian lifter just turned to him. He's like, are you serious? And the guy quickly backed away. He's like, and the guy's like, I will break the record right now if you could give me some sort of financial incentive. And this is apocryphal, but it's likely true. They reached some sort of monetary agreement between this Russian lifter and the meet director. and he was supposed to go. I'm blanking on the actual numbers, so I'm just gonna give numbers that are off. But he did set the record. He's supposed to go like 150 kilos on the snatch and like 220 kilos on the clean and jerk. Just a nice warm up meet for things in the future. And he PR'd and set the all time record in both, like a 210 snatch and like a 265 kilogram clean and jerk. Just like mangled it as soon as the guy's like, hey, here's $5,000. So I think there's a lot of room to grow. I do want to wrap it up though, because I'm aware of everyone's time. And I do want to thank every single one of you for participating, for helping out the community. I want to open the floor to everyone. I'll start with the burrito to have closing remarks. Anything you want to circle back to, anything you feel that, we missed out. And I want to give everyone the opportunity to shout out yourself. Where can people find you? And maybe closing thoughts. Jonnie, the floor is yours.
My name is Jonathan Candito. You can find me on Candito Training HQ. Yep. I'd like to thank Omar. I think one thing that I want to reiterate that I think we all have understated is Omar's effect on powerlifting. And even though Omar's not hasn't gotten in there on the platform just yet.
Yeah. Wait for my DM to you, bro.
Yeah, I could definitely say with my channel, Omar, for those who don't know, Omar was, basically the first jumpstart to it. It was pretty much Omar and then a video disagreeing with Ripito, and that was about it. So I think that's one thing that I want to make sure doesn't get downplayed. Yeah. And other than that, honestly, I think we touched on a ton of topics with, I would say, the level of rationality that most people need to hear. Because I think there is a lot. It's one of the hardest things about the internet is to even have an opinion. Usually, then it has to be extreme. And I think a lot of these longer form mediums it's just a lot easier to communicate the nuance to it. So honestly, I think I have nothing to really add beyond this because I think we really touched on pretty much everything pretty thoroughly.
Brother, let me just say, Candito, it's been amazing to see you throughout the years. And as soon as I saw your channel, I saw your 500-pound squat and what you're doing. I'm like, this boy can lift. He knows what he's talking about. And for you being the ambassador, I think you have been the perfect ambassador of kind of the IPF. And in general, let's say powerlifting, carrying the banner and growing it. And if it wasn't for you, I don't know where it would be or that entire segment. Because I remember, like I was there. I went to meet in 2012. With Sean, I just saw what let's say the scene was like, and I think it would be an entirely different scene without you. So definitely, I'm going to link everyone's channel in the description. Bryce, the floor is yours, my man.
Yeah, I think I'm with Jonnie on this one. I think we talked about a lot of stuff. I think we were able to kind of communicate with the nuance and context necessary. Which I think is something that gets missed out on when you're like, okay, I want to make sure I got retention on this video. So we got 7 minutes. We got to cut this part. And, there's a lot of that kind of stuff. Yeah. But it's good to have these kinds of discussions and hopefully people tune in and learn something. And along the same vein as Jonnie, I think I can shout out and thank all 4 of you for helping me grow over the years and for having a big influence on how Calgary Barbell does things and kind of leading the way for us to be able to do what we do. So hats off to all of you guys. And if you want, you can find us at Calgary Barbell everywhere.
No, man, Bryce, I got to give you a shout out. I think we all felt that when we saw your channel where it's like, why does this guy have no views? We're like, the video production quality, the level of content that you brought has been the next level where basically, not that someone feels guilty watching some of the videos, but you're like, this is free. And it also has 4,000 views where there's kind of a schism that occurs in your head. Like, no, this needs more views right now. So what you guys are doing, how you're representing it, how you're growing the community, and how, once again, you're representing the North, I think it's fantastic, man.
Thank you.
Mike, you've been there from damn near the inception. What's going on, buddy? Closing thoughts.
I got nothing. A lot of fun. Love to do this again. Shit. Mm-hmm. As long as I'm locked at home, I'll fucking do this every day or weekly or whatever y'all want to do. I appreciate all 4 of you. Omar is one of my best friends, had my back since day one in many, many, many factors of life. And so I'm always happy. And these other 3 guys inspire me daily. I'm never going to accomplish many things in this life, but if I get to meet cool people like this along the way, man, I'm down. So thanks. It's fun. Otherwise, I'd just be sitting here sipping coffee, twiddling my fingers. So Find me Salah Mike, wherever the hell you want to find me.
Mike, let me just say that you've definitely also had my back. Need I bring up LA 2015? I'm not going to go into specifics, but
I think we need to go to specifics in the next podcast.
Oh man,
the boys need to hear it.
There are some stories, but I will just say that I think you've downplayed your importance and your role overall, where there was the expansion, let's say from 2012 to then like 2014, and certainly Barquan's not here, but Barquan had a huge impact on a large community. Even individuals, honestly, giving credit to Matt Ogus when he did a powerlifting meet, like that raised some eyes. But I can say safely that when I came down and we hung out in 2015, you were instrumental for super training, where, you know, super training at the time, and this is no shade whatsoever, but super training when I came down had, I probably, it wasn't a massive channel, but I probably had like 200,000 subscribers. I don't know, some shit like that. I think super training had like 10, you know, like super training wasn't what it was. And then it grew rapidly that year to probably 150,000. Like it blew up. And I think you were instrumental for that, for communicating. You played a huge role. And then also with your own solo stuff in terms of just, you know, rubbing elbows with all those people, making it understandable, being the relatable figure, bringing another slice to powerlifting. But as you joke, like you're a hip hop head, like you're not crushing, like, you know, Metallica's Nothing Else Matters isn't playing before you go on. You're not slapping yourself in the face. Like you've expanded the definition of what it means to be, let's say, overall strength athlete and the content that you produce, man. So much respect to you.
Thanks, buddy.
Alon, closing statements.
Not much to say. This was a great conversation. This social distancing stuff has got me lonely. So being able to have a conversation with you guys was great. Now we just need to have a Skype lifting session where we all kind of lift together and watch each other during sets. And then that'll feel like the real thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you guys.
Yeah.
I think that this will definitely be helpful for a lot of people. And the 2-hour-long YouTube video, I think, will be in high demand during this coronavirus ordeal.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Everyone's like, we can't lift anymore. Like our interest in this is an all-time. Like a year ago, people would have been like, now they're like, I'm home alone. I'm getting tired. Yeah, I do want to say it reminds me, Alan, like we spoke on the phone like last week, and we just started talking for 20 minutes because of the, you know, the social distancing thing. It's like, oh, another human being. This is pretty cool. I do also have to highlight, and I'm just doling out the compliments because it's the truth. There's a reason why I selected you for, right? I think, Alan, you have done a tremendous job of expanding, let's say, the overall strength content. So, of course, there is powerlifting, and a lot of your advice certainly applies to powerlifters, but expanding kind of the conversation where I think you were the first stepping stone, no pun intended, for the strongman content, where you expanded the amount of people that were even interested in that in the first place, that made it easier now for the, let's say, the giant expansion, where, like, you know, all the individuals like, you know, Brian Shaw, Eddie Hall, Half Thor, they're like, oh, let's get a cameraman, let's film some of this stuff. Like, it's a viable medium then to express oneself. I think you've greatly expanded, and your independent mindset that you bring, and kind of the creativity, the editing, the clearness of what you brought. And, you know, I know we've shouted out, and I'm just going to say it, and I don't care. I'm throwing daggers, Alan. But I think, you know, Candito shouted out Barbell Medicine, and Austin Baraki, Jordan Fagenbaum. They're fantastic. They put out the content. I think you've put a lot of top tier coaches on the map. And I think all of us, I'm not saying like I discovered, you know, Barbell Medicine because of you, but like you and the reach that you've had for seemingly, you know, a sport that doesn't have a lot of interest has dramatically helped so many people, Barbell Medicine included. And, you know, I just want to give that quick shout out, man.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate it. I think that in my opinion, my most influential year was when I was a starting strength coach. I think I really touched a lot of lives. I apologize for anything I ever said while I was drunk on milk.
When you drink a gallon of milk, bro, like you get a little delirious. Some of the things you say, you're like, why would you 4 reps?
Straight to your head.
Yeah. Oh, man.
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah. I will just end it and say thank you to everyone for listening. If you liked it, go ahead and like it. If you didn't, you could go ahead and smash that dislike button, and it's okay. You made it 2 hours. You deserve the right to express your opinion. And also definitely make sure you check out every single one of the channels of my 4 guests. Link to that will be in the description, and we'll catch everyone in that next video. Peace.